Good morning, everyone. My name is Denise Lucy, and it's my privilege and honor to welcome you today to our Business Edge Briefing series. Dominican University of California's Institute for Leadership Studies and the North Bay Leadership Council have partnered for a decade offering the Business Edge Briefing program. Together, we welcome business owners and organizational leaders to share strategies and techniques for businesses to be resilient and competitive in the domestic and global marketplaces. Our goal for these briefings is to ignite innovation, inspire creativity, and increase profits and productivity. Cynthia Murray, the CEO of the North Bay Leadership Council and this terrific partner we've had for 10 years, she will be moderating our questions and announce upcoming events at the end of our program. We want to tell you how grateful we are to the Bank of Marin for being our Business Edge Briefings sponsor. For 30 years, Bank of Marin has been a leading business and community bank in Northern California. Today, Bank of Marin operates in 10 counties with 31 branches across the Bay Area, also through Greater Sacramento and also Amador County. Thank you, Bank of Marin, for being with us so many years in support of our businesses. We also have so many community partners today that have joined us, and I'd like to read their names. The San Rafael Chamber of Commerce, the CEO Club of Marin, the Marin Economic Forum, the California Hispanic Small Business Development Center, the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Marin County, the Latino Council, Latino Futures, Los Cien, Solano Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and the Sonoma County Economic Development Board. Thank you so much, community partners, for joining us today for this really important workshop to support our businesses so that we can help them grow. I wanted to make sure we all also know that today's program is led by, in sponsorship with the U.S. Commercial Service, which is a lead trade promotion agency of the U.S. government. It provides counseling and support by trade professionals to help U.S. companies to export or increase sales to new global markets. And the U.S. Commercial Service, led by Elizabeth Krauth, has been on our campus for over 17 years at the Borowski School of Business at Dominican University. Along with the U.S. Commercial Service, we also have an office by the SBA. It's called the Marin Small Business Development Center, SBDC as an acronym. This program is directed by Miriam Hope Corral. And Miriam and her team provide no-cost business advising with experts, assisting small businesses with obtaining pandemic funding, HR support, e-commerce and social media setup, and pivoting strategies and many more. In the past year, in fact, the SBDC has helped 1,300 businesses to start, grow, and scale. So really hope that you will consider Dominican University of California's Borowski School of Business as you seek to help your businesses reach more customers. As I said, this program today is organized by the U.S. Commercial Service, and I'd like to introduce to you Elizabeth Krauth, the director of the U.S. Commercial Service and the U.S. Department of Commerce. Elizabeth.
Thank you very much, Denise. I'm pleased to introduce the speakers. First of all, though, I want to welcome everybody from around the country who's here. So thank you for being here, whether it's your morning or afternoon. We're glad you're here. Today, our first presenter, Dr. Mara Perez, is the founder and principal of Latino Futures, a consulting and think tank project. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Mara Perez.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for that introduction. I am very happy to be here today to talk just for a couple of minutes about the importance of Latino businesses, not just for the Latino community, but for the United States as a whole. At this time, we find that there is a tension between the success and the opportunities that the Latino community encounters when it comes to entrepreneurship. There are some elements of support that are missing, but that they can easily be established once the various institutions that would provide support to Latino businesses changed their perspective or enhanced their visions. A couple of things. The Latino population as a whole is very important to this country. We comprise a large percentage of it, reaching 60 million people. And in a few years, 4 decades, we'll double that amount. Another reason why the Latino community is very important in the United States is, for example, in 2019, the economic output of our community in this country was $2.7 trillion. If the Latino community were a country, we would represent the 7th largest economy in the entire world. That's significant, and it's certainly significant for the American economy. I created Latino Futures as a think tank and consulting practice with the intention of speaking mostly about why Latino prosperity is so important for the United States. I built 4 pillars in this prosperity framework for the Latino community, comprising education, Latino philanthropy, workforce development for the Latino community, and entrepreneurship. And today I'll focus briefly on entrepreneurship. Indeed, the Latino community represents a major engine of growth and prosperity for the United States. Latino business creation in this country has been and continues to be large, but it is hard to scale. We should take this into account. In 2020, right before we entered the pandemic, there were 4.5 million Latino businesses in the United States. In the 10 years prior to the pandemic, Latino businesses grew by 34% and represented 40% of all minority-owned businesses in this nation. It's also important to know that while in 10 years, Latino businesses grew by 34%, all other small businesses created by any other race and ethnicity in this country grew by 1%. So if it hadn't been for the Latino community, creation of small businesses would have declined precipitously. For all these reasons, it's important to consider how we can scale Latino businesses. And we must note that the nation is in reality fueled by small enterprises. But the big ones are also important. First, a few words on the pandemic. 3 months after it was declared back in 2020, 86% of Latino businesses indicated that they were already feeling the stressors of the pandemic due to the fact that people had to isolate themselves, shelter in place, social distancing, etc. And that struggle continues. It's also important to recognize something that the Latino Business Action Network in the Peninsula, which is a think tank on Latino entrepreneurship, has produced significant research on the opportunity gap that the nation faces by not propelling Latino businesses forward. The gap is $1.5 trillion a year. That is to say, if Latino businesses were to scale and had revenues at the rate of white-owned businesses, for example, there would be an extra $1.5 trillion in the American economy on a yearly basis. So it's very important to take that into account. It's also important to take into account that, for example, in 2019, only 20% of all business loans at the rate of $100,000 or higher requested by Latino businesses were approved, as compared to 50% of all businesses that requested similar loans by white business owners. So there is a disparity there. There is another point that we should take into account, which is the $1 million marker. What does that mean? The $1 million marker for Latino businesses means, one, it's very, very hard to reach that. And two, when Latino businesses reach the $1 million marker of revenues per year, it is very hard for them to sustain them and scale that rate for a number of reasons. It's hard to get loans, as I just indicated, from local and national banks. That's one, because banks tend not to have the capacity or the vision to reach out to the Latino community to the extent that they could. And two, because Latino businesses in general tend to fund their enterprises with family funding and their own money. So there is a need to increase access to education to Latino businesses about how to access loan. But it really is a reciprocal situation. It's not just that Latino businesses need to learn how to apply. It's also that funders need to expand their vision in terms of who they fund and why. So the Latino marker of $1 million is also important, because when they reach that level, and the businesses that could benefit from venture capital, for example, or angel investors, face a real wall, a thick wall in terms of access. Venture capital and angel investors only deploy 1% of the total funding that they provide to entrepreneurs to minority-owned businesses. That includes Latino businesses. Imagine the opportunity if these funders, venture capitalists and others, expanded their imagination, expanded their vision, and expanded the pipelines through which they pursue and recruit entrepreneurs for their funding sources. It is known that venture capitalists have a very limited pipeline that typically focus on the people that went and graduated from the same elite schools that they attended. Latinos obtain educations not necessarily in large numbers from those universities, but from a host of universities. So there is indeed an imperative for venture capitalists and others to expand their scope in the pipeline. And the fact that there are trillions of dollars of opportunity in business development within the Latino community should be a large motivator for those funders to consider this in the future. Clearly, exporting is a significant engine of growth for Latino businesses and any business. Accompanied by that opportunity, we have certainly still the need for banks and other funders and other institutions that help Latino businesses and others grow to, like I said, expand their vision and expand their imagination about what it could be to have more Latino businesses that have scaled and gone well beyond that $1 million margin and revenue. Because as I always say, US prosperity depends in part on Latino prosperity. And Latino prosperity depends in large numbers on the success of Latino entrepreneurs. This workshop today is an example of what the government is doing in order to ensure that Latinos and Latino entrepreneurs have access to resources and information that will allow them to have greater success in their businesses and indeed scale them. So I invite you all to enjoy the presentation. I'm sure it's going to be very fruitful. And I thank you, of course, for your time and most importantly, for your dedication to entrepreneurship. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Perez. Our next presenter, my colleague Diego Gatesco, leads the U.S. Commercial Service Global Trade Americas team, which facilitates numerous opportunities for U.S. companies to connect with buyers and partners in North, Central, and South America. Welcome, Diego.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Share my screen. You see it? Yeah, okay. Thank you for the opportunities and appreciate the Dominican University and everybody working on this. It's great information, great speakers today and tools that you're gonna have. I want to very quickly to go over, to give you an overview of what the organization that we work for, Elisa and myself, we work for. The US government is very big. Sometimes it could be like a maze for anybody looking at it. Just to give you a perspective, we are part of in the cabinet that the president has. We have the U.S. Department of Commerce. The U.S. Department of Commerce has a lot of bureaus. Orders that we work under is called the International Trade Administration, or what we call the ITA. It has 3 small agencies, as you see there, the enforcement and compliance, that my colleagues there work on trade agreements or kind of helping level the playing field for US companies who are doing business overseas. Then we have industry and analysis. Our colleagues there are a lot of economists that they gather data and information from different industries, and they help us to, or companies to be competitive overseas. And then the U.S. Commercial Service, which is we fall under, and there's the agency that kind of works more linked to the U.S. companies across the country. As you can see there, we have offices all over the country and all over the world. I'm located in West Virginia, one of the top there in West Virginia on the blue side on the East Coast. And Elizabeth is in the last office there on the West Coast. You see San Rafael there. But the important thing is, like, we have a colleague that covers whatever state you are in. We have a colleague that covers your area, and you can talk to them and to us. Overseas, wherever we have is the U.S. Embassy. The U.S. Embassy most likely will have a commercial section. That's where we have our colleagues there. And if there's one, for example, you see in the map there that Bolivia and Paraguay don't have one, we have the State Department, and we have a partnership with the State Department. We work through them and our commercial issues with U.S. companies trying to get business there in the market. The interesting thing there to know is that the countries we are, like about 75 countries, covers 96% of our export markets. So we are where we need to be. The other interesting fact there is that our offices, for example, let's say you're a small company, you don't speak Portuguese, and you want to export to Brazil. We have a team there, local team that knows the language, knows your industry, and knows the market very well. So that help us kind of open the door for the market for you. Normally, each country has 1 or 2 or several U.S. commercial officers, as we call them. There are U.S. citizens, and they're the ones running the office, and then we have the local staff, as I mentioned. We have a lot of resources for you. In this slide, I know it has a lot of things, but the main thing you want to focus on is the one at the bottom right of the screen, that trade.gov site. Very important. If you can go to the site and explore the site, there's a lot of great information there. But I'm going to give you an overview of some of their services. In a minute, you have from export counseling, market intelligence, business matchmaking, and commercial diplomacy. We're going to go a little bit on each of those. Export counseling, from meeting with you to see if you're export ready, to, hey, this is how you can quote one of your clients on a net 60 for X product, providing financing to your clients through certain products that we have. How you do the logistics, any issues you might have that we can solve when you're exporting with customs or anything in between, we can come in and help you. Sometimes we may not be able to fill out the forms for you, but we can help you to guide you how to do those. But there's a big spectrum of how we can help you, where we can help you. So explore that. And I'm going to touch base in 2 here from this slide. One is the online side. The last two years, companies have been going online a lot because of the pandemic. And it actually kind of helped realize US companies that the website is a very, very important tool. It's the first thing that a foreign buyer is going to look into it if you're trying to sell in the market. It's like your social media profile or anything you have. If someone look at it and it's not appealing, they might not be interested. So you want to look into it. We have a great tool that is there. It's called the Website Globalization Review and Gap Analysis. I think it's very inexpensive, like $100 to do this. But they give you a really nice report on how we see the website, how globalized it is, what things you need to do to fix it, and working with your SEOs, like working to make sure that you're being seen overseas. And I don't know if you work with the SEOs, with Google, when someone is doing research, search in overseas, and you can help to have your company come up higher on the list so companies can see you first. So that's very important. There's 5 steps that you have there. One is to define your objectives, like if you want to customize it for local, regional, or go international. If at some point, if you're not doing international right now, at some point you want to go there, I suggest you fix your site now to be international. Again, the tool to check the website, the SEO for foreign companies looking at you. And then we have some of the e-commerce service providers. We have a list of companies that can help you in any point of that to get ready. Some companies just selling products. Some companies are actually using some of e-commerce tools that they need. We can help you to do some market research throughout the site and some of the e-commerce key indicators that you need to use. So we can help you to make sure you're, when you're providing a service or product, selling products overseas, you're being seen properly overseas. This is a great tool, and the website's underneath as well to the right corner. Another thing I want to touch on the expert council is expert finance. This is really important. We hear a lot of times like, how am I going to get paid, or I don't have enough funds to cover the demand that I have because I'm doing exporting now and I have all these orders. I don't have the money to fulfill those orders. So what do? So there are some tools like working capital that we can help you get to working capital so you can produce the goods and ship them, and then you can return those funds to the bank. We have an export credit insurance there that you can see. You can play around with this later. The slides have a lot of links here, but export credit insurance is primarily was to help you to sleep well at night and thinking that you're gonna get paid. That insurance is insurance policy, basically saying that if a foreign customer for X, Y, and Z reason, like the government takes over the company or something, and they are not able to pay you back, the US government would pay you back that up to 95% of that invoice value, which is really good. Beyond that, that tool is being used for many of my clients, many companies across the country as a marketing tool, because using these export credit insurance, they can provide terms to their clients. Now, instead of having the client paying you in advance, which many companies still do today, you can deal with them and make a deal with them and say, hey, we'll give you, instead of 100%, just pay us 20% in advance, and we'll give you a net 60 or net 90 days if you want to, depending on the products, to pay you. And you use the credit insurance on that transaction, you can actually go with those receivables that you have for that transaction, go to your bank and discount them. So you can get your money and your cash flow going and not using cash in advance. So it's a really, really cool tool to use. And we can talk about that one-on-one later on if you need to. But a very, very interesting tool. The next thing that we want to talk about is market intelligence. A lot of things to gather. We have gathered information from many databases, from our colleagues in the ground on different countries. One of the things that you want to look into here, they want to showcase the country commercial guides. Basically, if you're traveling to any country, vacation or for business, make sure you go and check these country commercial guides. We have 125 of them. I will give you from who is the president to how you need to dress for a meeting, or how if you need to, you can shake hands or not. What are the leading industries in the market that for US companies? They give you a very comprehensive data on the market that you want to know before you go. There are very large reports, 100, 120, 150 pages sometimes, depending on the market, but very good to review. Initial market check. Let's say you're more advanced and you're looking at some markets. Hey, I think I have we're getting orders from this market, or I think I have some good prospects in this market. We can talk to our colleagues in the market and provide them with an initial market check, meaning, let me see if you have opportunities here, and they will provide you a list of potential partners there to give you how the lay of the land is, and if you have opportunities. If everything checks out, we're going to push you forward to do a next step and maybe travel to the market and meet with potential customers there. International company profile, that's a good tool that a lot of companies use. is like you have a potential client or someone that you want to sign a distribution agreement or someone in the market that you're interested with, but you don't know them that well. So this tool give you finances, references, a very big report saying, okay, who is the company you're trying to deal with? Even the embassy can go and visit the company in person to testify if they're in business, they're a good business, and they're a good standing to work with you. Very good tool. And customer market research, we can do. We have different tools there to help you with market research to see, find out where you want to go next. Business matchmaking. Few things here that you want to look into it. Single company promotion. Let's say you come up with a new product, a new line, and you want to make some noise in Brazil or Argentina or any country that you want to target. We can organize an event with everybody in that industry that you want to have in that event, associations or potential buyers, potential representatives. And you can even do an event at the ambassador's house or something that the embassy could assign. The embassy themselves, the embassy will send out the invitation. So it's a very higher level event. So you can have a very big, large event to promote your lines, new products, or your introduction to the market, if you will. It's not expensive. It's basically if you're having a catering or something, you will pay for those things. So it's not very expensive tool there to use. International partner search is the next level of the initial market search check that we talked to you before. It's basically telling our offices to say, hey, give me an idea who we can work with in X country. So we'll give you a form to tell us who you are, where your objectives are in the market, and or our colleagues will give you a report saying, okay, we contact these 20 companies, these 10 companies are really interested in working with you, and we send you a report. And you have two options there, just contact them directly or move to the next step, will be the one on the bottom, which is the Gold Key service. That's a matchmaking service where you will travel to market and meet one-on-one, face-to-face with the potential client, which in Latin America we recommend to do because it's all about relationships and you want to get to know the person you're going to be doing business with. So that's a very good, actually it's the service that we work with US companies the most because a lot of success from it, a lot of exporting are coming from that service. Another one is very interesting, the feature US exporters listing. That's each of our offices overseas have a website, and attached to it, you can have a page on that website saying with your company logo, or picture of your products, your description, and then what you're looking for in the market. It's a great tool to get leads from that market, but what it does, because you can have a form, anybody interested in the market working with you will sign up, fill up the form. That information will go to the embassy will check them out, and they will send you saying, hey, company X is interested in working with you as a lead, which is great. But what it's doing too, remember we're talking about the SEOs, how you rank on the search for a company overseas. Your website is going to be embedded in a high traffic government website. So automatically, organically, your name, your products are going to go up that change without paying for those SEOs. So it's something very interesting to do, and it's very inexpensive as well. It's marketing essentially. I think it's $150 for 5 markets for a year. So very inexpensive, very good tool to work with. This service provider listing. Some of our offices overseas have a list of potential companies can work with you to help you set up business there, or to accounting firms and things like that can help you in that market. Trade events, we do a lot of those, especially on the Trade Americas in the region, in the Western Hemisphere region. We do a lot of those things, from webinars to trade missions. In the US, the 2 feature events, and overseas as well, we have the Discover Global Markets and Trade Winds. Let's just conclude Trade Winds. Very, very successful events. Companies participating there have come up with a lot of good things to tell you and success stories. Trade fairs, sometimes we have a lot of fairs here in the US, a lot of trade shows. We organize events when we know that companies from overseas, potential buyers are coming in. So we organize events for US companies to meet with those potential buyers here in the US. So it's a very good opportunity also to be engaged with. Commercial diplomacy, anytime you have an issue, a trade barrier or something that you have an issue in customs, or there's something the government is doing overseas that is not helping you to, or is prohibiting you to sell there or compete there, you can let us know. We can help you with that. We have a team that helps on that. Advocacy, if you're trying to get into a tender or a bid overseas, with some kind of help, we can engage our advocacy team to help you through the diplomacy, through the embassy, maybe the commercial officer, the ambassador, or even sometimes we had some cases we had to get involved with even the president to help solve some issues. So very important that to get involved and get to know these resources. So we're talking about exporting worry matters. Here it's kind of give you an idea of like 70% of the world purchasing power is outside the country. So there's a lot of people out there, companies that can buy your products. Sometimes we hear companies, oh, my products are very expensive. Yes, but there are still companies overseas that can buy, and because they like the products from the US, the quality and how it's being done and how they last and how long they last and how they perform. But we're seeing if this map is kind of telling you a little bit about our competitors overseas. We're kind of declining in that aspect. And then if you see a little bit more, that we kind of see as an opportunity, because the US, if you see the percentage of the GDP generated by exports, we are lower than our competitors. So we have some room to grow. So we have the opportunity to get involved with more companies like yours and kind of entice and encourage more US companies to get into the exporting and selling more and doing more and growing. Just here some numbers. Our mission is also to grow the US export to increase US jobs. We'll show you a little bit more about that. In 2019, I think I got the latest number. 10.7 million jobs were supported by exports, goods and services from the US. That's a tremendous amount of people working related to export. And in 2020, we helped about 31,000 US exporters, most of them small business. And something I like to mention too, because a lot of companies, especially in West Virginia, they're like, when they see the government's like, well, you're using taxpayers' money, but I like this bottom left picture. For every dollar that's allocated to the commercial service, about 360 comes back to the US economy in terms of exports. So people like to see that, and it's actually nice to see it, that we are kind of helping to develop things and create things that help the economy. So another number, I want to show you, kind of pause here a little bit and show you like why you're buying into exports. If you go to the census.gov site today, you're going to see two big numbers on the right side of that page. Just go to census.gov, and you're going to see the US population, about 300 some millions, and then you're going to see the world population, 7.6 billion. So if you do the math, it's about 90% of the potential customers are outside of the US. So if you're only focused on the US, you're missing about 95% of your potential customers. That's something that you look into it. Some companies export because they want to increase their sales and the profits. Some they want to overcome some of the domestic issues that they might have, some issues that here they want to do that. So here's some list of things that make a US company think about exporting, okay? Another things at the bottom, like 1 billion export support, about between 5,000 and 7,000 US jobs. When someone is looking for a job, I always recommend kids coming out of college or people looking for jobs, look for companies that are exporting, because they're on average, they're paying 80% above the national average of salary. So they're paying more. And the small, I always mention these, the small business who export, they grow faster, they pay higher wages, and they hire more quickly. So it's all good and positive on the side of export, getting involved. The problem that we don't see enough, like I mentioned before, we need to encourage more US companies to get involved. We did a study a few years back with UPS, FedEx, and DHL about companies that were exporting. And obviously we found out that less than 1% of US companies export. And from there, 58% were exporting to US just one market. Maybe they were exporting to Canada or Mexico because it's close by, but they're already exporting. So we can increase that 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 10 countries. So they could do more. And then we did some surveys and see what's the issue, why companies are not exporting as much. And this is what we found out. Like many of them, they were saying that they were getting trouble getting working capital. They were getting worried about getting paid, like we mentioned. They were having issues looking into customs or regulations overseas. And some of them, they were saying like, well, how we find or like distributors, how we get to that point to we can find something that we can trust. So all these issues, and the last one is lack of commitment from the management and a clear export strategy. All those things that we talked about before. So we have solutions for all those problems. So there's not an issue there. The only thing that I found out working for many years here is with the US companies is the lack of commitment of management, the owner or whoever makes the decision in the company. If they don't understand the value of exporting, if they're not committed to do so, the salesperson or their marketing or whoever's going to be in charge of the international sales, they can make a lot of noise trying to push as much as they can, but if the commitment is not there, we didn't see much success there. So you want to have the owner of the company understanding the benefits of exporting. And actually this math I put there at the bottom, export equals growth equals jobs. So you want to export, you want to get a bigger demand. That demand is going to make you have to hire more people to fulfill those demands. So I want to show you the interesting piece of to keep in mind. So again, companies that export grow faster and they're less likely to go out of business. So if you're not doing it yet, we encourage you to do it. If you know any companies that could be doing it, have a great product, please encourage them to do so. One thing too, I want to add, at the end of the day, I talked to a lot of companies, and at the end of the day, I'm going to show you something. It comes in different colors, but at the end of the day, with the companies, they want to do more of something, and they want to do more of this. They come in different colors, but at the end of the day, you want to have a lot of these. And believe me, if you do the homework right, and follow the steps that we have to provide you, you're going to get a lot of those, especially the green ones, and companies like that. I want to show you a little bit about the West Hemisphere. One things that we see very quickly. I know some of you are Latino owners. You might speak Spanish. Yo hablo también un poco español. Muy bien. No tan bien. But one thing I want to have you in mind as you're doing business in Latin America, you might know the language, but you knocking the door to a potential customer or the US Embassy knocking that door is going to open much faster if the US Embassy knocks the door rather than yourself. So just keep that in mind as you do. Take advantage of the resources that you have there with our offices and our colleagues overseas. So when you're trying to do business or trying to increase your perspective, talk to us, let us know, we'll help you to open those doors faster. So why the West Hemisphere? I mean, if you might have someone from the region. I grew up in Argentina. I know the culture. You might not. We have a lot of affinity, economically, culturally ties, geographically very close. So it's very important for the U.S., the region, very important for the U.S. for our national security, peace, and prosperity. Okay. Also, the region has a lot of resources. It's something that now is in the minds of everybody: critical minerals, a lot of other things, agriculture, something that's going to come up. There's a lot of things there that we see the region. The U.S. sees the region as very important partners in as we come into the future. 47 countries. We have offices in 35. Again, almost 700 million potential customers in the region. 40% of our total exports flows to the region, which is very important. And if you see the graphs there, the charts, like we trade twice as much in the region as we do with China, and more actually with all Asia combined. If you see the chart at the bottom, so we do a lot of things, and we still have room for more. We have free trade agreements, countries that you can export without tariffs involved. We have 12 countries, more than half of the total free trade agreements are in the region. So very important to identify those countries, those 12 countries, and start the research from those. Some of the challenges and opportunities. Challenges, one of the things comes about, and if you have you're Latino, you're going to see corruption. It's one of the biggest things we're seeing in the markets. The recovery post-COVID is having some issues. Some countries, they're going slower than others. Some countries like Brazil, we're working on import barriers like tariffs and things like that. We're trying to work on those to ease up for the US and getting much better. We also see in Russia, the influence, the US influence. We have some competitors from other countries. We saw some competitors in one of the slides. They're being very aggressive in the market, especially in South America. So we're trying to work on things, how we can put our influence or ways to do business in a better way in South America to kind of help with that erosion. Climate change is also another issue. Opportunities, again, as a Latino business, you might know better the language. So you have something there that many of the companies in the US don't, the language. You can communicate, that's very important. Sometimes when they're in meetings, it's better to do it in Spanish than in English. It helps the communication and trust. You have some opportunities there, benefits that you can use. But here are some of industries you want to focus on that I see across the map: infrastructure, environment, tech, agriculture, energy and mining, healthcare, ICT, digitalization. There's a lot on that, and defense. I want to show you here a little bit of a mix. I want to kind of give it. I know this is too much information here, but you can see the industries that we have focused in each market. If you have a specific industry you want to focus on, obviously talk to us and we can help you to identify what markets you want to focus on. But this kind of give you a map of where the best prospects are in each country in the region. Okay. And here, this one project kind of give you a sample some projects. Okay, there are two links here I'm going to share with you that I really like for companies that are already. You have a solid product service that you want to start growing, and or you're growing and you're in a position to work with other companies. The IDB, the two multilateral development banks, the region, you have the IDB, the Inter-American Development Bank, and the World Bank. They have, normally you get an announcement of a tender or a bid. You only have like 30 days or so or more to kind of reply or work with. The two banks have a list of potential projects that are coming up in the next year or 2 or 3 or 4. It's nothing that's happening now, but it's happening in the future. So you can get involved ahead of time. You can get involved and see who are the local companies that are going to be working on that project. How you can get involved in that. And for IDB, they call that list about preparation. If you click there, you will go to a list of 209 projects that are in the region. They're in preparation, so you can see what sectors, what the topics are, and see how you can get involved. The World Bank, instead of calling preparation, they call them pipeline, and they have 143 on that area. Very good tools to use. We can help you on working on those. Very quickly, now you know how to do your homework, how you get about the process, you're ready to go. Your products are ready to do it, and you're excited about it. One of the best ways to do it is getting involved in a trade mission or an event. The Trade Americas have organized these events. There's one coming up next week. In May, we're going to Sao Paulo, Brazil. We're going to have a 2 days conference, and then we have companies going, the US delegation coming in. The Deputy Secretary is going to be leading this delegation, by the way. In May, they're going to go to Brazil, and they do meetings business to business in Brazil, and then they're going to go to Argentina, to Chile, to Bolivia, Paraguay, Colombia, to do business to business meetings that the US Embassy is setting up for them ahead of time. Same thing with Central America in August, and then the Caribbean in October. Those two are still open. If you're interested in joining us, you can join us. There's an assessment process involved that basically our offices will help you, give you an idea if you have, similar to the IMC, we mentioned the initial market check we talk about. So you get that information ahead of time, so you don't commit until you know that you have potential business there. This is an idea how these events work. We have plenary sessions on the conference. We have one-on-one meetings with the officer. In Brazil, for example, a company that goes there, the US company is going to be able to meet with 11 countries in one place. They can talk to the US Embassy in Ecuador, US Embassy in Chile, in Bolivia. So they can talk to 11 markets at once, which is really great to gather information. There's a lot of resources that we offer with the sponsors are bringing a lot of resources there as well. A keynote speaker, a lunch, and there's a lot of activities involved. It's very good. You get in a few days a regional information from 11 countries, which is really, really good. I know I spoke too much, but I want to leave you here with some or links for our website. We have LinkedIn as well, and we have a newsletter that comes every month. We provide with everything that's happening in the region. The April is coming up soon, so if you want to be involved or in that newsletter, you want to receive it, let us know. Happy to include your email so you can see what's happening in the region. Elizabeth and Cynthia, thank you.
Thank you, Diego. That was terrific. We really appreciate it. And in the Q&A, a lot of people are looking for the link to the website that you talked about where it's $150 to get information. Can you put that link in the chat for everybody? And we are recording this and we will share the slides after the presentation. So all of this that Diego just presented will be available to you. So we're running late and I want to remind people that we have breakout sessions after the presenters that you can get into and ask more questions than I'm probably going to be able to cover right now. But we had one question, which was, is it an advantage to be Latino to be exporting to Latin America?
Yes, I mentioned that language, that's really important. Trust. You want to do business with any country in Latin America, you want to build that trust and that. And it's amazing how changing from English to Spanish, how things change. When you're in a meeting and you start doing English and you talk, and then you start Spanish, questions that you asked and they were no answers, you will see the answers, because it's I don't know what it is, but it's just the trust level goes up. And you will see that everywhere in any country in Latin America.
Somebody wanted to know, what is ICT digitalization?
The ICT, like it's telecommunication basically, but digitalizations we have seen how things are transforming. Everything's going digital now, like from e-commerce to like your car, your smart cities, like everything that goes from what it used to be to like all digital. That's the transformation we're seeing, how companies are adapting, how countries are adapting. Like now you have station for cars to plug your car in and your phone that can manage that and things like that. So how this transformation, how we adapt into that transformation, how you need to adapt to what's coming.
Another question was, is there a directory that lists prospective business partners that could be dealers or distributors that you could share? Where could they find that?
That's one of the service that we provide. We can help you to give you a list of potential contacts. But another thing that you can do for free is I mentioned the IDB. If you go to the IDB, you can search for Connect Americas. Connect Americas is the marketplace from the entire, there are 400,000 companies there, about 6,000 US companies there only, but you can see everything. It's like a marketplace. You can meet, you can post your products, your services there. You can talk to different companies across the Latin America and the Caribbean. Very fun thing to join. And you can get lists of potential suppliers there as well, or companies that would like to have your products or service.
And the slide you just showed about the trade missions, is that something you could also put in the chat or give them a link to so that they can grab that again if they don't want to go through all the slides?
Yes. Yep. I will share that now. Yep.
All right. In the interest of time, I'm going to cut this off and we're going to go on. But thank you so much, Diego. That was fantastic information. We really appreciate it. Remember, everyone, in the next speaker, so please put your questions in the chat and we'll get to them as much as possible. And now I'm happy to bring back Elizabeth.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Diego, and thank you, Cynthia. We'll now have two Latino-owned businesses speak about their experiences with international sales. First up will be Joan Laureano, who is a fashion designer, fashion jewelry and accessories designer, manufacturer, and exporter. She is the creator and owner of the fashion jewelry and accessories brands Cristallos and Devozione. Without further ado, I'm going to bring Joan up to talk about her success.
Hello, I'm here. Now, let me go ahead and share the screen so that you can take a look at what we're going to be talking about. Here you go. Okay, first of all, let's check that you can see the screen. Can you see the screen?
Yes, go ahead.
Excellent, excellent. So as you can see from the screen, I'm from Las Piedras, Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is a territory of the United States. So yes, Puerto Ricans can contact their local U.S. Commercial Service representative. For example, in Puerto Rico is Mr. Jose Burgos. I'm going to throw the name out up there. So if anyone from Puerto Rico is there, you can take advantage of the services of the U.S. Commercial Service, for example. So Cristallos is a brand of jewelry, both secular and religious. That's why you see on the first point over there that we design, manufacture, and distribute religious and secular jewelry and accessories. Actually, I have to say that our star brand right now is the religious brand of accessories, Devozione, which is a brand of accessories that focus on telling the stories of different saints of the Catholic Church, devotions of the Virgin Mary, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, etc. And we add to the jewelry the stories because every color, every texture, every single thing that takes part in the piece of jewelry, the rosary bracelets, the chaplets, is there for a reason. It's there to tell a little bit of the story of the saint or the Catholic devotion. And every single piece of information that we show to our customers through our rosary bracelets and chaplets have to be approved by a team of priests that are experts in canon law and theology. We are certified by the Catholic Marketing Network of the United States, which is a network of Catholic entrepreneurs, which report directly to the Pope, to Pope Francis. That's our guarantee that everything that we do in our business is in conformity to the teachings of the Catholic Church. And right now we are exporting to Chile, Panama, the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada. They're not there, but we do. The European Union, we have a distributor in Spain. I just came back from Panama. I had a Gold Key service done over there. Diego talked about the Gold Key. It's an awesome service. I was able to find 2 distributors in Panama thanks to the Gold Key service of the U.S. Commercial Service. And I was able to add Peru and Guatemala to our reach of countries internationally. Other benefits that I have been able to tap into because of the U.S. Commercial Service is the STEP grants. STEP grants are funds that are administered by the Small Business Administration. I was able to know about those STEP grants through my local U.S. Commercial Service officer, who was able to connect me with the local economic development agency in Puerto Rico. And they started taking me to international trade missions to Chile, to Spain, to Germany, and they cover the expenses. Sometimes, depending on the program, they cover the expenses of trade shows, they cover the expenses of the Gold Key service itself. And it's a great way to deal with the limitation of money, because when we are starting, money is a big limitation for every small business. So I really invite you to take a look at the benefits that the U.S. Commercial Service offers, because I have been able to tap into them and make my business grow. You know, Puerto Rico is a country in which we are educated to become employees, and the parents, and they don't do this intentionally, but it's part of our culture. Parents tend to instill in us a fear of entrepreneurship. And that's a big problem because when we want to become entrepreneurs, everybody tells us you're crazy, you're throwing, I'm an engineer, for example. And I started getting into the business sector in 2008 after the mortgage crisis, because the mortgage crisis in Puerto Rico hit us very hard. There were massive layoffs of engineers everywhere. There were companies getting out of Puerto Rico. And at that moment, I started revisiting what my parents told me about my education. They told me that that was going to bring me some kind of a stability. And I said, nothing is stable anymore. Nothing is really for sure anymore. So I have to take part of my own future and become an entrepreneur. So my dream was always becoming a fashion designer, and I became a fashion designer. It was an interesting way because I started studying beauty. I became a esthetician, and I started working with people from the fashion industry, and they saw the jewelry that I made, and they said, you know what, we can put you in fashion runway so that people can get to know you. And I said, sure, let's do that. But the problem was that as soon as I entered the fashion runways, and I'm going to take out the screen right now so that you can take a look at me. I'm going to stop sharing the screen right now so that you can take a look at me now. So anyway, when I started the fashion runways, I quickly realized that in Latin America, fashion runways are mostly unprofitable. Why? Because we tend to see the fashion runways in Spain, we tend to see the fashion runways in Italy, and we start thinking that that happens like that everywhere. And we don't realize that the runways, for example, from Chanel, from Fendi, from Gucci, those designers are not really the owners of the brands. They have a team of a lot of conglomerates, corporations, investors behind, that they are the ones who pay for the collections that are shown on the runways. And those dresses that are shown on the runways will not be worn by anyone. They are artistic pieces that are meant to become promotion for the more commercial brands that they do really sell to the market. In Latin America, we see that and we think that we can do that by ourselves, and that is not possible. We need to realize that high fashion has to go first through commercial fashions to become profitable. I didn't know that. And in Latin America, unfortunately, there's lack of mentorship. Nobody tells you that because nobody knows. So at the beginning, I got discouraged and I quit for a certain time. And I decided to open a fashion boutique. When I opened the fashion boutique, I started getting to know how the real fashion business works. You know, how people purchase, the purchasing power that they have, their favorite colors, their favorite trends. And then when I started purchasing from different brands started inviting me to trade shows. And I was like, trade shows, interesting. Let me go there. Let me go to see what a trade show is. And when I started discovering the world behind commercial fashion, I said, you know what? I can do this. But the problem is how, because I want to become an international business. Puerto Rico is such a small market. And since I didn't know who to ask, I started going to embassies and consulates. And people from the Dominican Republic, the consulate of the Dominican Republic in Puerto Rico, the consulate of Colombia in Puerto Rico started inviting me to trade shows. And that's how I started getting to know how to do international business through those other countries. So I started saying, okay, I'm going to do this by myself too. I'm going to travel around the world. I had to say that I almost became broke because of that, but it was a necessary step. I started traveling around the world to visit embassies to see how this works, until one day I went to Germany because the Dominican government invited me there for a trade show. One day the US Embassy in Germany wrote to our local US Commercial Service representative, and they told them, listen, there's a crazy Puerto Rican over there selling products in Germany. So he contacted me, He told me when he come back to Puerto Rico, I want to meet you. And that's what I did. I thought I had done something wrong. But when I went back to Puerto Rico, I met him, Mr. Jose Burgos, and he started formalizing what I was doing, because he was telling me, you're doing the right thing, but it's kind of disorganized. So I had to get your process organized. So he started inviting me to trade missions, gold key services, and the rest is history. Right now we are in 14 countries around the world, and we keep expanding thanks to the Lord.
Thank you so very much, Joan. And we love your stories and would love to hear more. Unfortunately, we have to move on to our next speaker, but there'll be time for Q&A in just a few minutes. Our next and final presenter, Marcus Gomez, is the founder of California Clothing Recyclers, in business since 1997. Each year, CCR recycles more than 3.5 million pounds of clothing with collection routes in Northern California. Please join us, Marcus. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? I hope everybody's fine. Yeah, my name's Marcus Gomez, and I'm with my company's California Clothing, and we've been in business for 25 years. Actually, I am third generation in this business. Great uncle started back in the 50s, and then my father spun off of him in 1964, and I spun off of my father's 25 years ago. We've been exporting since then. I remember growing up in this business, and as a kid, my father, before containerization came about, my brother would drive down to the ports, and we used to have to unload the bales onto pallets, and everything was palletized. And then in the early 70s is when containerization really came to be, and then we started loading containers and exporting. So as far as knowing how to export, like I said, I grew up in this business, and it was a natural. We export anywhere from 3 to 4 containers a month. And that's an issue with right now is the ports, and people, it's difficult. It's not like it used to be, but you used to be able to get a booking on a port, which is like a reservation on a ship. And the next day you can get a container, and, you can load it and it's gone. These days it takes weeks to get a container, to get a booking. And so, you have to be really patient. So I'll just be brief. We buy our clothing from the thrift stores, what they don't sell or what they don't use. We bring it into our warehouse, we bale it, and then we load them in the containers. We also do use shoes, purses, and belts. So just for a matter of time, that's the gist of it, and I'll take some questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Cynthia will cover the Q&A for our guest speakers.
Thank you, Marcus and Joan. Both really interesting products, services that you export. And I really appreciate your sharing your stories. So each of you has had your own challenges. And I think where you started, Marcus, on looking at some of the supply chain logistics and being able to ship your products, how big of a problem is that people who are looking into exporting should prepare for?
Well, like I said, it's gotten to the point where it takes 2 to 3 weeks. It's sometimes even a month. I've had containers sit out here for a month. And the problem with that is that if it doesn't get into the port, then you have to pay chassis fees, you have to pay container fees, and you have to pay storage fees if the trucking company stores it for you. It's gotten to the point where, I was exporting everything that I produce, and I just about 3 or 4 months ago, I found a domestic buyer. So if my warehouse gets full, then I know I can ship it, domestically to LA and, and keep the product moving.
So that's something to build into your plans when you start to look at exporting, that you need to consider those things. Joan, have you had those same kind of issues?
Well, in terms of logistics, you always have that kind of issue. For example, I just came back from Panama, and logistics and shipping charges is something that it's becoming more and more important. People, when I went there to Panama presenting my products, people were asking me, so how much is the shipping going to be? That was one of the very first questions that I was getting all the time. But, you know, I want to mention that that's a good point where the U.S. Commercial Service can help you. U.S. Commercial Service has a lot of offices around the world, and I was helped by the U.S. Commercial Service office in Panama. And one thing that I discovered through their office is that Panamanians have a very distinct way of shipping their products to Panama. When we ship products, we tend to think about pallets, or in my case, I'm going to show the packaging of my product, for example. My product is very small. You see, it's the rosary bracelet and the packaging. To fill a pallet of these products takes a lot of products. You know, I can fill one of our biggest boxes with 250 units, for example, and I fill those for distributors. But for smaller companies, they need their products shipped out in smaller boxes. I don't use containers. So when we think about sending products to other places, we think about UPS, we think about FedEx. But thanks to the U.S. Commercial Service, I discovered that Panamanians use private couriers that have delivery addresses in Miami, and Panamanians can even rent virtual mailboxes there. So it's easier for me, it's cheaper for me to use USPS to send my products from Puerto Rico to Miami, and then they use their courier services that they have in Panama to have their products shipped from Miami to Panama. And you can think, well, I'm in the continental US, I don't have that problem. Well, local courier services in Panama, those are very small companies. And since they're smaller, they are willing to negotiate even better shipping charges than the big, huge international shipping carriers that we know. So in terms of shipping, that's the great advantage of counting on the U.S. Commercial Service, that since they are over there in Panama, they know their people, they know how they purchase, and they know how they ship, and they can give that information to you.
That is fantastic tips, and really a good plug for using the variety of services that are at your fingertips with the U.S. Commercial Service. And so great you were able to tap into that. So
Can I add a little bit more to that? Yeah, you can, as an exporter, you can negotiate with your customer, what charges you want to, like there's inland shipping, from, the trucking companies pick up the container from the port and they bring it into your warehouse. And then the shipping for us, some of my customers take care of all the shipping, they pay, they pay us direct, and then they take care of all the shipping costs and so forth. So, all that's negotiable.
So Marcus, there's two questions. One is, what about tariffs in exporting to Mexico? Is that an issue?
No, not, again, for me and my product in our industry, all that's taken care of with the customer. Like if I ship to Mexico, I ship to San Ysidro, and it's up to them to get the product across the border. And same thing when I ship into Central America, it's up to them to get the product through their customs, because they know the ins and outs of the customs in their country. I don't know those, so it's just easier for them to take care of that.
And can you talk a little bit more, Marcus, about how you locate your buyers overseas? How did you find the people to buy your products?
It's funny because in our industry, we're seeked out. People come and they seek us out. I get calls, maybe 3 or 4 times a month from people all over the world. And, a lot of times I have to turn them down because the customers that I have already, they take everything that I can produce. So that's not an issue for me. But, and we have a website, and people get on our website and they contact us through the website. So for me, that's not too much of an issue.
Joan, how do people find you? Do you think your website and do you do social media? Do you have a lot of people reaching out to you, or is it more that you're reaching out to find them?
Oh, yes, I use social media a lot. Actually, I was going to mention people to follow me on Instagram and Facebook. You can look up my brand at Krystalos. That's K-R-Y, S as in son, T as in table, A-L-O-S as in son in Facebook. And on Instagram, it's the same, but you add the letter J on the front, and you can see what I do daily in terms of promotions, in terms of messages that I want to deliver every single day, because since we have a religious side, we share daily messages about the saints, about the Virgin Mary, about Jesus, and we try to keep our audience in the right path. We, in a world so full of negativity, we really need positive messages. So that's why we do daily over there. We keep them interested with good content. Content is very important.
In Spanish or in English?
Well, I do it in Spanish most of the time because that's my biggest audience, but I do have to say that we recently opened a page in English because we have a lot of customers, like I said, from Australia, from the UK, from Canada, and from the United States. For example, we have one of the biggest Catholic distributors of the US. They distribute the gospel music of Carrie Underwood, for example. So we have a lot of customers there as well. We are going to open a page in English as well. But yes, people contact me a lot through social media, Facebook, Instagram, and then through our website, which is krystalos.net. And it really works having a presence online.
Can you put all those things you just said so quickly in the chat so people can just click on it and be able to follow you on whatever media they wish? We are out of time. I wish we had more time, but thank you so much, Joan and Marcus. You have fantastic stories, and your successes are hopeful for us to be able to replicate. I'll turn it back to Elizabeth.
Thank you so much, Joan and Marcus. I wish we had more time, but at the time it is now, we better wrap up. And I want to talk very quickly about next steps. If you have any questions that weren't answered, please get in touch with either myself, and I'm going to put my email address in the chat, along with my colleague, George Testard, who runs our office in Sacramento. If you are located somewhere else in the country, have no fear. We have an office. Please reach out to one of us after this event, and we can connect you with the right person. The first step is to connect with your local trade specialists for all of these services. Also, please take advantage of the many partners who are on the line today with us, who have supported this event. Talk to your local chambers, build your local ecosystems, get in touch with your local small business development center. We work with Esther Gordillo, who is with the California Hispanic Chamber. the SBDC, the California Hispanic SBDC, but there are similar organizations throughout the country. Finally, I want to mention that we are going to move now to an optional breakout room. So the speakers will be available in the breakout rooms, and you can go into those with a separate link that Jessica will be putting into the chat for everyone. And you can go speak with any of the speakers that you've heard so far, Diego, Marcus, and Joan. So I just wanted, before I turn it back over to Cynthia, I want to thank you all very much. I'll put those addresses in the chat. Please reach out to us and we can get you started with the U.S. Commercial Service. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Dr. Mara Perez, Diego Diego, I'm sorry, I'm blowing your last name. Getskako, Joan Laureano, Marcus Gomez, and my partners, Dr. Denise Lucy and Elizabeth Kraus, and our program sponsor, Bank of Marin. Our next Business Edge briefing will be on April 13th at 11 a.m. And again, it will be virtual on Be More Productive by Delegating and Balancing Your Workloads. You can purchase tickets to that on Eventbrite. And we have some great leadership lecture series coming up that Dominican's Institute for Leadership Study does in partnership with Book Passage. April 4th, we have Elizabeth Alexander, April 18th, Valerie Biden Owens, and April 27th, Luann Brezadine. So, and those you can get at dominican.extendedsession.com. We really appreciate you all coming today. And again, if you want to go to the optional breakout sessions, the link's in the chat, and you can go get any of your other questions answered there. And we look forward to your success as an exporter. Thank you so much for coming today.